Hello and welcome to another edition of PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale History, where today we'll be taking a break from the recent batch of darker games and looking at something a little bit lighter. We'll be going back and taking a look at the first Jak and Daxter title again and throwing in a few rounds of golf while we're at it. So get comfortable while we take a look at Sandover Village. Sandover Village was the very first place encountered in the Precursor legacy, the first game in the Jak and Daxter series. It's where the duo lived at this point in the storyline and where their long adventure officially began. It was a small coastal village consisting of a series of small rocky islands near a beach. It contained several small huts where various different residents lived. Windmills and other fairly basic contraptions were common features of the village. Naturally, due to its iconic place in the Jak and Daxter series as Jak's home in the first game and the place where the whole series began, it became a stage in PlayStation All-Stars. Retaining much of the look of the first game with huts equipped with windmills dotted about in the background with a large hut in the foreground. This hut is particularly important since this was the home of Samos the Sage, Jak and Daxter's guide throughout much of the first game. A wise man who mastered the use of green eco, he helped the duo to find a way to turn Daxter back after his turn into an Otzel, despite the fact that he often got annoyed at Daxter's antics.
Now, all of you, get out of here!
He lived in a large hut at the top of the village, a fancy 2-level building with a long curved walkway wrapped around it. He lived there with his daughter Kira, a mechanic who was developing the A-Grab Zuma, a hover bike that the duo used at various points throughout the game. She and Jak shared a possible romantic interest, but this largely faded into the background as the series progressed. Samos' hut appears as the central foreground detail in Sandover in PlayStation All-Stars, with its wrapped around walkway acting as a couple of platforms for fighters. Samos and Kira also make an appearance in the flat part of the island where they're prepping the Rift Rider for use. Ah yes, the Rift Rider. At the end of the Precursor legacy, Jak and Daxter found something mysterious inside a large silo. It wasn't until the start of Jak 2 that we saw it was a strange vehicle known as the Rift Rider. Essentially a cockpit on a ramp leading to a rift gate, it allowed the user to travel to another place and time. It was the launch of this vehicle that led Jak and Daxter to Haven City following a botched launch that brought great evil to Sandover Village and destroyed the Rift Rider in the process. The launch of the Rift Rider goes a bit more smoothly in PlayStation All-Stars as Samos and Kira managed to send the cockpit into the rift gate without incident, and instead of bringing in monsters, they bring in something else. But before we get to that, there are a few other little things that we should mention. Back in the Precursor legacy, Sandover Village looked out over a great sea that looked incredibly inviting to go and swim in, and you could dive in and have a nice relaxing... Oh.
Did you see the size of the bite that lurker shark took out of the fisherman's boat? We best stay way clear of them. I don't think we can tackle a creature that dag nasty.
Yep, lurker sharks existed in the waters surrounding, well, anywhere with a large expanse of water. Swim too far out and you'd be eaten, forcing the last checkpoint to reload. You couldn't fight them and they were very difficult to get away from. They pretty much existed to prevent you from swimming out of the game's world into the great unknown. A lurker shark also swims around Sandover Village in PlayStation All-Stars. The water is a major hazard here, not least when you get eaten by the shark that swims around, which forces you back onto the stage in a dazed state. But there are two small details that you might miss in the midst of the action. First of all, ever noticed how Sandover Village gradually gets brighter? No? Well, it does. As the timer ticks down in a match, the sun gradually rises over the horizon until it sits high in the sky by the time the mashup comes in. This may or may not be a reference to the day-night cycle of the Precursor legacy. As you play through the game, the lighting would constantly change, with the sun rising and falling constantly, making the world feel even more dynamic and real. It was a subtle touch in the Precursor legacy's design, and it's a subtle touch that's been snuck into Sandover in PlayStation All-Stars as well. Throughout Jak and Daxter you could pick up Precursor orbs, which were strange egg-like relics that littered the landscape. In the first game these were commonplace and often used as currency for power cells, the things you needed to progress in the game. They were also a major collectible, and getting 100% of them contributed towards the final ending of the game. Precursor orbs were also rare items in the sequels, where collecting enough of them in secret places led you to being able to unlock certain cheats and extras. They became such an iconic collectible for the series that Precursor orbs even made regular appearances in Naughty Dog's later series Uncharted. A single Precursor orb was hidden in each game, where it was called the Strange Relic, and it netted you a trophy if you found it. Precursor orbs also appear in Sandover Village and PlayStation All-Stars. A few of them are sneakily floating about in the background in particular places, such as on the bridge behind Samos and Kira, and to the side of Samos' hut. Now let's take a look at the music. Golf, a sport originating out of Scotland in the 15th century and today traditionally played by CEOs and high-ranking politicians on their day off, it's also one of many sports that has been translated into video game form time and time again. In fact, it's been such a popular sport to turn into a video game, a game simply called Golf appeared on the Magnavox in 1979. I'm sorry, am I boring you and making you wonder why all this is necessary? Well, because Sony were one of many video game publishers that wanted their own golf game. And so, Everybody's Golf got released for the original PlayStation back in 1997, spawning a series that would last to this day. Now, while the series is known as Hot Shots Golf in America, I'll be referring to it as Everybody's Golf, its European and translated Japanese title because, well, that's the name on the game I recorded for this video since I'm European. Called Everybody's because the game was designed to be easy to pick up and play for anybody, the games often employed incredibly simple control schemes and featured cartoony graphics and less complex physics than the typical Tiger Woods sims of the world. And this is the series that mixes with Jak and Daxter and Sandover, with golfers from the series emerging from the rift to start putting balls all over the island. The golfers that came out were actually the starting golfers from Everybody's Golf World Tour, aka Hot Shots Golf Out of Bounds, the PS3 edition of the series. Jasmine is an English girl who apparently took up golf to please her father, and Nick is an American kid who took up golf after obsessively watching it on TV. Gameplay wise, Jasmine was an average all-rounder good for beginners, while Nick was also average but good at curving shots. There is also a third golfer, Suzuki, who is an incredibly well-hidden character in World Tour but had apparently appeared in previous editions of the series and had become something of a mascot. These three golfers appear in Sandover Village, appearing on hills in the background, constantly driving golf balls towards the stage. They also bring their caddy with them. Caddies in Everybody's Golf are basically just background characters who assisted your character. They would chase after the ball to mark where it went, they would offer advice on the terrain when putting on the green, and would applaud you for good scores. The beginning caddy in World Tour was Hannah, and you'd probably get to see a lot of her in the game as a result. Hannah is also the caddy that appears in Sandover Village, standing on the green and mostly just dancing and clapping. This is unusual since she would only do this for successful shots and not for encouragement like she seems to be doing here. So here's how gameplay worked in Everybody's Golf. Like many golf games, it utilised a simple 3-click system. After aiming your shot and taking into account factors like wind and terrain, you pressed a button 3 times to take the shot. This used a power bar. When you press the button once, the power bar would gradually fill up. Press the button again and the bar would stop filling up and a marker would move back to the start. Press the button a third time as the marker gets back to 0 and you finally took the shot. It sounds complicated, but it was really very simple. There was an alternate method, however, that removed the power bar entirely. This involved watching your character, setting the power based on the height of their swing, and hitting the button in time with when the character hit the ball. Usually in this mode, if you took the shot just out of time, indicators would appear above the tee, specifically a rabbit if you hit it too fast, and a turtle if you hit it too slow. You also need to be aware of wind speed and direction and set up your shot in anticipation of this. As a guide, there was always a directional arrow in the corner of the screen. The direction the arrow pointed was the direction the wind was travelling in, and the striped colours moved at an approximate speed, with a number underneath as an estimated wind speed. The power bar makes an appearance in Sandover Village when golfers take the more direct shots at the stage. It appears on screen and acts much the same way as its original form, although it's automatic now. It also brings in the rabbit and turtle symbols from the advanced shot system, and sometimes the golfers will hit the balls just off time. During this, a small wind direction will also appear in the corner of the screen in the same place it would in the original game. It doesn't really do anything, but it's just a neat little Easter egg. When you hit the ball in Everybody's Golf, it would often travel through the air with an obvious white trail so that you could easily see where it was going to land. If you used a power shot, set by pressing square before taking it, this trail would turn red to signify its greater speed and distance. Golf balls in Sandover Village also have these trails. When the golfers are just hitting balls around normally, the white trails can be seen as the balls bounce off the green, off the hut, land in the water, or generally fly off into the air, with very few actually landing on the green or going near the hole. These trails turn red when the golf balls become an actual hazard. At the start of every stage in Everybody's Golf, you would get an indicator of the layout of the stage, including a guide of the direction to take your shots. This often wasn't an accurate representation of where you'd end up hitting the balls, more a suggestion of the direction you should take. This indicator was a big bouncy orange arrow that would travel across the fairway until it hit the hole. These arrows appear in Sandover Village when the hazardous golf balls are about to come in. This time, however, they appear to be arrows from the golfers setting up their shots. Finally, when you hit a shot successfully and sent it flying in Everybody's Golf, the game would congratulate you, with your caddy applauding you and the words "nice shot" dropping down onto screen. This congratulatory message also appears in Sandover Village. If you manage to take out all of your opponents with a single super, the same message will pop up, although this time it will be accompanied by confetti. I think that about covers it, so let's take a look at the music.
Good luck!
And that's Sandover Village. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time with a very prominent character. Stay tuned.